Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tanessa, the event coordinator for the FAU Libraries, and I would like to welcome you to this webinar, Election 2020, Know Before You Go. Even though our buildings are not currently offering face-to-face events, the FAU Libraries work virtually to continue to provide support for teaching, research, and learning. We hope that you find that this webinar will do just that. Today, we are welcoming faculty from the FAU Libraries and the Dorothy F. Schmidt College of Arts and Letters. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to use the chat box at any time. This webinar will be recorded and will be posted on the FAU Libraries YouTube channel. Now that the housekeeping is out of the way, I would like to turn it over to the director of the Barb Schmidt Fellowship and Associate Professor of Art History in the College of Arts and Letters, Dr. Karen Leader.
Thank you, Tanessa. Thank you for having me. Thank you for collaborating with Arts and Letters to do this. For some reason, I am not able to turn on my camera, so you don't get to see my fabulous Vote t-shirt. I'm also wearing a pin that says Thrill of the Vote. That was a collaborative exhibition I did with Library Special Collections a couple of years ago with Vicki Thur. And I'm also wearing a flag pin. So just so you have the vision of what I look like today. It's all about voting. We have 1 week left to vote in the 2020 presidential election. So I'm going to start by taking you through some of the how, when, and why to vote. And then I will pass it off to my library colleagues to get to the point where you can say, how do I figure out who to vote for or what to vote for? So this is starting from the premise that everyone in a representative democracy of any sort should vote. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Voting is a privilege, it is a right, and it is a responsibility. So if you are eligible to vote and you are registered to vote, please figure out how you are going to vote and then vote. So everything you need to know about voting, starting with why should I vote? My vote doesn't count. They don't pay attention anyway. Well, in some ways that's a little bit true, in part because Americans don't vote at the levels they should. We should be voting in overwhelming percentages of eligible voters. We're this, world-class democracy. We should act like it. We don't always. And so why should you vote? Because if you vote, politicians will pay attention more. So we start with, you have issues. We all have issues. Climate change, gun violence, racial injustice, income inequality, student debt, access to affordable health care, human rights. Many other issues as well. This just happens to be a list that was gleaned from young people. So we're speaking to you today and suggesting that if you care about any of these issues or many others, voting is the most important way to change these. Voting leads to policy, voting leads to legislation, voting leads to lawmaking. There are other ways to advocate for the issues you care about, of course. Street protests, demonstrations, sign waving, signing a petition, writing to your elected officials, emailing them, tweeting them, text messaging them, picking up the phone and calling them, going to their office. There are many other ways to advocate for the issues that you care about, but voting can lead to the most lasting changes, and it always has. Second reason, because in the 2020 election, young people like you, millennials and Gen Zs, will be the largest share of eligible voters, which means your issues can dominate politicians' interests in the next 4 years. But the key word on this particular screen is eligible, because if you're eligible but you don't vote, you don't get your voice heard. The baby boomers, of which I am that generation, I'm a late boomer, they reliably vote. And so politicians kowtow to us old people because they know that we reliably show up, we reliably vote. We would like to shed that. And we would like to turn over being the largest voting bloc to you, millennials, Gen Zers. You would influence everything that is happening on these issues that you care about if you would just use your position as the largest potential voting bloc to actually change who politicians are listening to. We want to hand it off to you. So whatever issues you land on, vote based on those issues. You can impact those issues. Also, get your friends to vote. Everyone make a commitment to get 2 or 3 or 4 friends to vote in the next week. That can change everything. Okay, so next is, well, how do I do that? Voter registration is closed. So if you are not registered, you can't vote in this upcoming election next Tuesday. You can register anytime you want. Just pop over to the supervisor of elections and get your driver's license or ID card. And if you don't have one, you can download a registration form and fill it out and mail it in if you're 16 years or older. But you can't vote in this election if you're not registered. If you are registered, you should have gotten one of these, voter registration card. It looks a little different. They updated them this year. I got a new one. This has a lot of good information on it. You're never going to be asked to show this, but it does have a lot of good information on it. And you want to check and make sure that your personal information on it is correct, like your address. It has your precinct number, which matters because it connects to where your election day polling place is. And on election day, you have to vote at this polling place. It also has all of your congressional districts, all of your districts, congressional, state, Senate, state house, county commission, school board district, and your municipality. So it's all this useful information. Make sure to check and that they have all your information correctly. Okay, how should you vote? What we have been saying as voter advocates is how you vote is not as important as having a plan to vote. And at this point, you have basically 2 choices. You can vote early or you can vote on election day. If you did request a vote by mail ballot, you can still deliver that ballot. You can still drop it in the mail. It may be a little late at this point. Still has a week to arrive. It has to be received by election day, 7 p.m. on election day next Tuesday. If you haven't mailed in your mail-in ballot and you're planning to, do it now. You can also deliver that mail-in ballot. There are vans at the early voting locations, and I'll say that a bit more about that in a minute. Have a plan. Okay, there are basically 3 ways to vote in Florida. First is you can wait until November 3rd and show up at your polling place that's listed on your voter registration card. You can only vote at that polling place. You have to have a photo ID. It does not have to be a driver's license. It can be a student ID, for example, but they are going to match your ID to you to make sure you are who you say you are. And then they're going to have you sign in. So you want to make sure that your signature matches the signature you used when you registered to vote or the signature you used when you got your ID or driver's license. We recommend that you bring water, of course, wear a mask, and plan to stay a while because it's likely that the voting in person on election day is going to have lines for various reasons. You can vote right now at any early voting location. These ones are for Palm Beach County. You might be in another county. It'll differ a little bit depending on the county. But for Palm Beach County, you can vote at any early voting location in Palm Beach County. And here they all are, including one right on FAU's campus in the housing building near Student Union. Again, you need a photo ID, driver's license or student ID, something with a photo on it, wear a mask. And the lines have been a little less daunting. There were long lines on the first day, but since then the lines, I've been working at early voting, the lines have not been too bad. You can usually be in and out in an hour or less, oftentimes much less. And the early voting locations also have places where you can deliver your mail-in ballot. It's too late to request vote by mail, so I'm going to skip that one. But I want to say something about the signature. The way that the state of Florida confirms your ballot is by matching your ID and your signature, not your address. Your ID with your photo on it, they match that. And if you do vote by mail, they match your signature. You are going to use the same signature that you used when you registered to vote or when you got your ID card. So that's why I'm showing this. If you do have a vote by mail, make sure that you read the instructions, fill it out carefully, put it in the security sleeve, seal it, and sign it across the enclosure the same way that you signed when you registered to vote or got your ID. And the reason I'm stopping here for a minute is the same is true if you vote in person. They are going to have you sign on a tablet. And if you signed for your voter registration or for your state ID with a middle initial, make sure you use that middle initial. If you signed using just initials, make sure you use just initials. Make sure that your signature matches the one that you use to register to vote or get a Florida ID card. That's the most common way that ballots get rejected. Ballots can be repaired. And so this year, if you're voting by mail, which you still have time to vote by mail, you can't request a vote by mail ballot anymore, but you can still vote by mail. It actually is going to have a place at the bottom where it asks you for an email address or a phone number. Those do not become part of your permanent voting record. They're only being used so that supervisor of elections can reach out and contact you if you need to repair your ballot. Okay, I'm going to pass things over to my colleagues now to talk about how to research what in fact is on the ballot.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Can you see my screen? Okay, great. So welcome to the second part of this webinar. In this part, you'll discover where to research issues and candidates for the upcoming election. You'll be able to learn about resources from the federal government, FAU Libraries, and nonpartisan organizations. We'll show you a library research guide with links to the resources we're going to cover. And hopefully you'll be ready to do some searches and be prepared to vote in the next election. So the first thing I want to show you is where to locate the resources that Larry and I will share with you. You can click on any of these resources and find them. The link is tinyurl.com VoteFAU. So we tried to do something that you could remember pretty easily. tinyurl.com VoteFAU, or you can go to the library's homepage, click on the research guides icon, and then put in election 2020. So the first database I want to show you is a U.S. government resource called USAgov Voting and Elections. So here you can find information about the election process, voter registration, and election laws. And now we can see Karen's t-shirt. Very great. So hopefully everyone has already registered. So we'll get some information about the election process itself and also about election laws that protect your right to vote. So these are the options you'll have when you click on the link, to the website. So I want to point out two things here. The first thing on the lower left-hand side is the presidential election process. So if you're confused about the Electoral College, about what happens after you cast your vote, click on here and it'll explain all about that. But we're going to go into voting and election laws to find out again more about your rights as a voter. Once I click on that, a couple things here I want to point out. First of all, the voter ID requirements. So when you go to the polls, you're going to have to show some ID. Each state is a little bit different. So to find out what those requirements are, click on that option. Also, you can, if you for some reason don't have those, in Florida at least, you can cast a provisional ballot. So that will explain all about voting requirements. But as far as voting and election laws go, So what you're going to find is a big article about the different rights and ways that that your right to vote has been guaranteed. So as an example, I'll show you laws and accommodations that help voters with disabilities. You see a full text, couple of full text links there to laws that have been passed specifically to help people with disabilities. And it'll give you a nice big long list of the rights that you have. Part of that being that you can bring someone to help you vote, and you can get help from poll workers trained on accessible voting machines. So this is a great place to look at the process of voting and your rights as a voter. So next, hopefully you're motivated to vote and you want to talk about issues and you want to look at candidates. So to make up your mind. So we'll show you databases here that will help you do that. The first one I'll show is the Gale Opposing Viewpoints and Context. This is a library database, so you must log in with your FAU credentials. But it's a great place to research important issues which can affect your election choices. It's also nonpartisan, so it'll give you different sides of a lot of the issues. So this is a snippet of the homepage you'll come to when you click on the link. You can either search by keyword in the search box, or you can browse issues. Now, when you browse issues, you're going to find a huge list of most of these are very important, very contemporary issues. So I just got this snippet as an example of what's on there. Things like gender identity, global warming, race relations, racial profiling, government stimulus, and they're updated often. So they have the most recent information. I chose to look at criminal justice reform as a topic. Now, it so happens that this is a national debate topic, so that's why it appears in this form. But basically, it's going to be an article about should the federal government enact criminal justice reform in the following areas: forensic science, policing, and sentencing. Now, the good thing about this database is that it has resources from a lot of different areas. So you can find resources from reference articles, different viewpoints, academic journal articles. You'll find statistics, videos, and magazine articles. And they're all from multiple sides of the issue. So I chose reference to look at that group of resources. So a reference usually gives you an overview of the issue. That's a good place to start. This is a summary of the whole article, the pros and cons of enacting substantial criminal justice reform. And you see under pros, things like police reform could improve relations between communities and law enforcement. Criminal justice reform could help reduce prison overcrowding. Some of the cons being that policing reform could limit the effectiveness of law enforcement, and sentencing reform requires that resources be used to help, could be used to help law-abiding citizens rather than be diverted to protect the rights of suspected criminals. When you do a search in this database, it has a good feature where if you sign in with Google or with Microsoft, you can create your own account. That is, once, of course, you've signed in through FAU. In that account, you can look at multiple issues. You can save them. You can highlight them. You can add notes to them. And then when you might have a list of issues you want to look at more about, then you can print them or email them to yourself. Now, if you do happen to be writing a paper on one of these topics, it also helps you to cite them. So that was a good database. Now I'm going to show you another one called CQ Researcher. So again, this is a library database and you must log in with FAU credentials. But this is a resource where you can read about current issues and activities of the president and the Congress that relates to those issues. It's produced by an academic publisher and it's nonpartisan in tone. Something that's very important, that authors and credentials are clearly identified so you can kind of judge as to their expertise, and the articles and reports are thoroughly footnoted, most with live links, so you can actually read more about the topic. So for the issue I'm looking at, they all have featured reports. Now, the first report that comes up would be something really contemporary, and that's the whole thing about monuments. Should Confederate monuments and other types of controversial monuments be left alone or be taken down? But I'll show you other topics you can look at. I want you to notice on the right-hand corner, though, that with this database, you can also sign in and create your own account. You can save different reports to that account, and you can also sign up for topic alerts. So if something new is published about a particular subject, you'll get the newest information. There's a lot of ways to find the reports in this database. You can do it by keyword. You can look by browse by topic, but I chose to browse by date. So I wanted to show you the most recent ones. And again, you see some very interesting topics that people are really talking about now. Things like police under scrutiny, social media, pandemic preparedness, COVID-19, the place of China in the world, and pandemic economy. So as an example, I chose pandemic economy. You see in the introduction, it's going to be all about how the coronavirus pandemic has affected the economy, what Congress has done about it, what the president has done about it. So they're the different positions and statements of both Congress and the president. Once you get the information, as you see from the upper right-hand corner there, you can go ahead and print it, you can email it, or you can save it to the account you've established. You can also cite it, as you see there, if you happen to be using it in a paper. So the last resource I'm going to show you is Proquest Congressional. Again, a library database. This database publishes official congressional documents, and it's a place to go if you want to research members and former members of Congress. So so congresspersons are elected every 2 years. So unless the congressperson that represents you has decided not to go up for re-election, information about them will be in this database and can help you decide whether or not you want to vote to re-elect them or vote for their opponent. So you can also find the congressional record, which is a recording of statements made on the House floor and the Senate floor. You can look at bills and laws, hearings, vote reports, and more. Excuse me. So I'm going to use this for to look at a member profile. You see from the homepage here, you can look at research reports from the Nonpartisan Congressional Research Service. You can look at hearings and bills. But since we're interested in the election, we want to look at a profile of our congressperson. Now, in Florida's 22nd district, which is where the FAU campus, Boca campus is located, our representative is Ted Deutsch. That's the 22nd district. All of the profiles of the Congress people are going to look the same. And if you look at the options, if you look at the tabs there, you see committees. It'll give you the committees that they belong to, the bills they sponsored, the 4 statements they've made, and importantly, their 4 votes. So I'll give you a screenshot of a couple of examples. Under 4 statements, Congressman Deutsch has made 64 statements over the last Congress, which is the last 2 years. And this is going to give you a full text link to all those statements. The first 2 are pretty non-controversial, promoting Alzheimer's awareness and something about the South Florida's first responders. There are also statements about controversial issues. And the next tab would be on voting. Okay, so you'll be able to see all the votes that the congressman made in the last Congress. And you see he made over 918 votes. Now, Congressman Deutsch is a member of the majority party, so he voted with the majority 97% of the time. If he was a part of the other party, that number would, of course, be a lot less. But on this page, you see that you can have the full text of a recording of the vote plus a full text of the bill that they're voting on. So this is very helpful. The example here is a motion to suspend the rules and pass the Preventing Crimes Against Veterans Act. Well, this is non-controversial, so you see it was passed 417-0. But you'll also see a lot of controversial bills where the votes were a lot closer. So finally, if you go to advanced search on this database, you can go straight to things like bills and laws and reports, but this is helpful if you want to search through all those votes and find a particular topic, or if you want to search through, say, a congressperson's statement in the congressional record and sort by a keyword. So for votes, for instance, you could put in the search box healthcare, and in the second box, put in Congressman Deutsch's name, and then you'll go straight to all the votes that just pertain to that one topic. So that can be very helpful to look through the votes and look through the statements. So I wanted to say that if you're not affiliated with FAU, that community members will find the same information in a resource called GovInfo.gov. So go to GovInfo.gov, and that information is available to everyone. Now it's in a little bit different format. It doesn't go back quite as far, but the same information is there for the last 20, 30 years. Now, when you find any result on the database, you can download it or email it or print it. Now, if you are using something in a report that you're making, Proquest, who makes the database, has a libguide that'll help you cite it, and it also has a helpful function of providing you a record of your searches. So if you do a lot of searches and you maybe want to go back to something you did before, you can find a history of your searches. Okay, so that's the end of my portion. I want to pass it to my colleague, Larry Mello, who will show you 4 more resources.
Thank you, Bruce. So the first resource I want to point out today is in the similar notion of what my colleague Bruce has shared. This is a library resource. So if you were a student or faculty and you're using it off campus, you would have to verify that you are through a login process. OneSearch will allow you to search across all the different databases. So whereas Bruce pointed out 3 individual different databases, and you can use each one individually, this will allow you to search across all those databases at one time. It's called OneSearch. Operates very similar to Google or any search engine, but it focuses on library resources. So you can, for our example today, we use Healthcare and Affordable Care Act. And when I hit search, you'll find things from news articles, academic journal articles on the topic, to conference reports, and even in some cases, just plain old books. So when you do a search, again, here's our search terms, Healthcare and Affordable Care Act. You can see it comes back with over 855,000 items. Again, those are all your news articles from your news publications like the New York Times, Washington Post, to various academic journals, to conference reports, to speeches, government documents. It's a lot of information. Again, OneSearch is good for doing a very broad search across all the resources we have in the library. Now, when you do a search, you'll see this is what the results will come back as. Here's just a couple. It'll tell you the title of the item, gives you some bibliographic information, and also tell you that in this case, the first one is a government document that is an ebook and can be accessed remotely as well. The second one is an academic journal article discussing Healthcare and Affordable Care Act as it pertains to heart disease. So again, there's a lot of information that OneSearch can provide you based on your search terms. And if you're using it to search various hot topics for this election, it's going to give you a lot of results, both academic and news articles and things of that nature. So the next portion of my presentation, I want to point out, I'm going to be pointing out some nonpartisan websites that you can go to that will allow both faculty and students of FAU to use, as well as not for any in the audience who are non-affiliated with FAU, because you can use these, they're nonpartisan, and you can access them wherever you have internet capability. So the first one is Ballotpedia. As it says, it's a neutral digital encyclopedia of American politics, will help provide information and accurate information in a nonpartisan manner on the hot topics, as well as those individuals who are running in this election. Or if you're not running for this, looking to run, and you're maybe thinking about running, excuse me, in the future, because again, it's all about, you know, taking control of our nation, and you think you have what it takes to be a politician, you can begin to look and see what the points of topic of interest if you're looking to run. So the landing page looks much like this. It will focus on some hot topics that they found relevant. But the main point I want to point out is this is what's on your ballot, right? Yes, you can acquire a sample ballot through your local county voter office. So if you're in Palm Beach, that's obviously, or I live in Broward, so I can acquire Broward.org voting supervisors. But this is a good website to find out what's on your ballot. So we'll use, for example, keep it simple, we'll use the FAU address for the campus. And then we'll tell you what election you're currently involved in. So this is upcoming November 3rd election. And if I hit how to vote and enter, it'll give me up some of my hot information. It will also provide you information of all your candidates, both from the federal level down to the local level. But I really want to focus on, for this website, the ballot, the amendments on the ballot, excuse me. Right. In this case, there are 6 amendments currently in the Florida ballot, regardless of what county you're in. And from here, here's an example of Amendment 3. Currently, Florida is a closed primary between the two parties, but there is an initiative looking at to open it up, the primaries up to all voters, not just those of registered parties. And it'll explain to you what a yes vote means, as well as a no vote. So depending on where your stance is, you can go into the whether it's early voting or on November 3rd with an educated understanding of what these amendments mean. As I mentioned, you can focus on, it will provide you the candidates. In this case, we're looking at, and there's actually more than 3 candidates for the White House, but these are the top 3 that I can snag. But the main 2 parties, the incumbent Donald Trump, sitting president, and his candidate that he's running against, Joe Biden. He gives you bibliographic information. So if you want some more information about the men or women who are running for a particular office, you can look them up. As well, like I said, you can have your congressional, statewide, Florida State Senate, all the way down to your local municipality and local school board governance. This is very useful. Again, it will provide information and bibliographic information and where each candidate stands on a particular issue. All you have to do is click on it and open the page up. So can I print out my ballot? That's also a question we get. And with this website, yes, you can. So you can print it up, you can mark it up, you can take notes on it, because one thing you are allowed to do when you go into an election is bring this with you. Because, you know, there is nothing scarier sometimes than doing all this research and then walking into the voting booth on election day and go, okay, which one did I want to vote for? Or which amendment did I want yes for or no for? So print it up, take your notes, and go in there with all the information at your disposal. The next website I want to point out is VoteSmart Facts Matter. Like I said, the most important about all these websites is providing, making voters voter smart, right? So we have voting records of all the candidates, bibliographic information of those who are running, hot issues or what they call political courage test, based on the issues, interest groups and ratings, and even down to campaign financing. I know for some voters out there, it's important to know who the candidate is and who's financing them, where they're getting their money from. If that's not of an interest to you, then you don't need to worry about it. But for a lot of people, it is, because they want to know whose back pocket they're in, regardless of who's running. What I really want to focus on is when you click on any one of there, it takes you to this landing page here, and we have 4 hot areas: political galaxy, vote easy, on point, and that's bull. For the nature of this discussion, I'm going to point out political galaxy and I'll show you what it looks like. Now, this is a static image of this. If you were to go to this website and go to the website itself, it's very how do I want to present it? Say very eye appealing. It's moving. It's catching your attention. It's definitely not static in any way. So from here, I can put in either the politician or I can pick by issue. So in this case, we'll keep Ted Deutsch since he is the incumbent. Now, mind you, this is only the incumbents who are running, because this a lot of this information is coming from where they stand on issues and how they voted. And we use healthcare and healthcare as my issue. So as you can see, the 6 main areas, and this is for any candidate who is incumbent: obviously biography, votes of where they voted on certain issues, their funding, where they're coming from, their positions on key issues, as well as speeches and ratings. All important information when you're trying to make an educated decision on who to support. So once you pick a topic, you can see it gives you his positions. So on the issue of health and healthcare, has 22 positions, and each one of these I can click on and it will explain it as a PDF. It will come up as a PDF so you can take it, look at it, print it up, and how they voted. Here's speeches. So again, here he has made 201 speeches on health and healthcare issue. And again, they're all designed as a PDF, so I can open up each speech, read it in depth if I don't want, or print it up if I don't like reading it on a computer. And the last one is funding, because I know for me, I always like to know who is supporting, who's funding my candidates, regardless of who they are. It's important to me as a voter, as a citizen, because I want them working for me and not some lobbyist. So my next and last resource, again, this is again a website that you can use. It's called vote411.org. It's very useful to put out by the League of Women Voters Education Fund. And from here, you can get information on factual data on the candidates, both federal, state, and local level races, polling places, as Dr. Leader mentioned, where to go for early voting, as well as where your precinct may be on election day, and just general information. So again, obviously, with the debates that have passed, if you were watching the debates, it would provide you critical information on the topics that are often discussed on those debate floors. So from here, I can choose, but I can register to vote. So if obviously it's a little late to register for this election, but you could register for the next one, as well as what is on your ballot. And that's what I want to really highlight with this website. So you can, they're in all 50 states, as well as the territorials. So you simply just click on Florida, put in your address. Again, we're going to focus on just using the FAU address. And again, from here, I want to point out, it will give you everything. This will give the entire ballot, much like Ballotpedia, from the federal level, the U.S. president, all the way down to, you can see Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation Group. So if you're not familiar with who's running for that particular position at the local level, it'll provide information there. It gives you all the state amendments, as well as a couple of the county amendments that are up for discussion, as well, like I said, and even the judges who are up for a re-election or election. So from here, I want to focus on what the amendments look like. Now, when you go to like I said, the one nice thing about this one is, unlike Ballotpedia, I will say, is this one will step you through from item 1 all the way to the last item on your sample ballot. And you can do select the candidates, you can compare them, and it gives you little boxes to mark yes or no on different measures. In this case, we're looking at amendments. And what happens is, through the end of the entire process, it will give you a link that should allow you to click on it and then print up the entire ballot, color or in black and white, with everything marked up, so you don't even have to write on it if you don't want to. I used it in a previous election, and it's very useful. So again, vote411.org, League of Women Voters. It's been around since the 1920s. And it's a grassroots, nonpartisan website its main purpose is to educate all of us as citizens who are out looking to vote. And as Dr. Leader said, I think if we truly want our democracy to be as great as it can be, we have to get out and vote, regardless of who we're supporting. But if we don't vote, then what's the point? So in that case, that is the end of our presentation, and I'll say if we have any questions.
I wanted to address something that was going on in the chat. I don't know if Sheila logged off or is still on, but we are really not here to discuss particular issues and tell you how to vote on those. This is to get you to a place where you feel comfortable doing your own research about the Second Circuit Judge, 15th Judicial. We specifically believe that voting is something that you have to learn how to do. And we want to make it easier by showing you that there are a lot of resources that will make it easier for you to make the right decision based on your values, based on your issues. So we're sorry that we didn't tell you how to vote on things that are on the ballot, but that really isn't why we decided to collaborate on this. And I hope that you feel like you've seen a lot of good resources here that can help you to navigate what can be a very complicated process, but it doesn't have to be. The resources are there, especially on the internet. All the resources are there. I wanted to mention one other thing, which is one good way to get digging down into your own issues is to look at the endorsements of third-party organizations. Some are nonpartisan, like the League of Women Voters. I'm a member. It's a wonderful organization. Vote411.org is amazing. But also more issues-oriented organizations make endorsements, like the Sierra Club, if you're an environmentalist voter, or National Organization for Women, if you're someone who votes on behalf of women's rights, or NAACP National makes national endorsements if you're interested in racial justice. So all of them publish endorsements, and you can look at their endorsements and see if they align with what you believe, and it helps you to get closer to finding the choices to make that align with you. And there are local endorsements as well. Local organizations make endorsements. Newspapers make endorsements. You can check and see who they have done their research on. All of those are ways that you can go to others who have done their research, who have talked to candidates, who have circulated questionnaires, and so that you don't just have to decide on what you think whoever the most famous person is has all the lawn signs, but you can actually find out who other people who have done the research have landed on. And that is true for the judges, the amendments, the water district, parks district. There are endorsements for all of them. Any questions? Oh, so now you can see my vote t-shirt. How many people have voted already? Just put yes in the chat. Yay. 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 I love my library people.
Yes, like Dr. Leader said, this when this first started, and I'm grateful for Dr. Leader for working with us, because originally Bruce and I talked about doing this, and I think her part of this added more depth to it. Just because even though we are a week away from voting, and many of us already have, but like she said, we're not here by any way to shape anyone's particular vote. That's something that's very personal to all of us. And when we go into the booth, that's why we go in for the most part alone, unless you're an individual who does need help due to handicap or services. We're just here to show you the resources that are out there so you can be an educated voter. And that's the bottom line. I think if we're all educated, regardless of who we support, then at the end of the day, we can say we did our job.
Indeed. And I also want to thank Dean Carroll Hickson, who put us together in the first place. and recognize the value of doing these kind of face-to-face instructional sessions. I've been doing them with a lot of students as well. And it just lowers the anxiety level a little bit to recognize that you don't have to figure all this out on your own. There are resources, and they're at the, the thing that's sitting in front of us most of the time anyway, this stupid computer. They're right there. So I'm so grateful for all the materials you put together, that LibGuide. Actually, both of the LibGuides are so useful and so easy to navigate. So,
Right. And if you haven't voted yet, make sure you go out and vote on Tuesday.
absolutely. Or before.
Or before. Early voting is always good too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or drop off your mail-in ballot at early voting. There's these vans. They used CARES money, stimulus money from the coronavirus. They used CARES money to rent vans, to put stickers all over the vans that say vote here. So you don't even have to go anywhere near the polling place. They're in the parking lot of early voting, and you just drive by and you can the person will walk over to you and you can just drop your ballot in this drop box. You don't even have to get out of your car.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us, and a special thank you to Dr. Karen Leader, Bruce Barron, and Lawrence Mello for putting together this presentation. Soon you'll receive an email from us with a link to a brief evaluation survey that we hope you will fill out to help us plan future presentations. That email will also include the link I shared in the chat box to a copy of the presentation slides and this recording on our YouTube channel if you need to refer back to some of the resources and tools discussed today. And to stay up to date on our upcoming events, please follow us on all social media channels at FAU Libraries. And most importantly, please go vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.